Hey everybody, just to let you all know that in a video previously I tried to show you a little hookup system I had for my LED lights. That's my safety switch on, and then it should have power coming from the safety switch into the 3 amp fuse there and going down across this cable into this little black box, which at the time had a cover on top. So this cover was on top of that, and you're all wondering what was inside. I did say it was the receiver for the remote control, which is now taken the cover off, because I want to try and show you the LED lights in working order, but they didn't work. So I took the cover off and I opened this little black box up, and there's 3 volts coming to the black box, but no other voltage. So the voltage was 3 volts, and I couldn't work out why 3 volts when it should be 12 volts. So I tracked the problem back using my voltmeter, which is on the side here, and I tracked it back to here. Now, the 3 volts is a mystery. The ampage is in, so I'm going to take that out so I don't get a shock in the process. I'm going to switch this off, and I tracked the problem back, taking that out and tracking the problem back. The negative, I think this is the negative, was pulled out. But then when I looked at it closely, and looked at my switch lines, all the switch lines were in. So it had to be, the only thing that had to be left was the negative. So I don't understand how, but in all my time I've done videos, and all the time I've done this black box, this negative, wherever I just put it, down here, would come out. So, and I didn't recognise it had come out in the other video. For you lot that was watching, might notice that this was out. And I would have if you noticed this was out, you were very clever people, because I did not notice in the previous video that this negative was out of the block. So now I'm going to track back to my negative block, which I think is this one here, and try and get this negative back in there. Now that's going to be difficult because I'm recording this with my phone. So what I might do is I might pause the video here and try and fix the problem, and then come back and show you what was going on. This time round, I've wired the negative directly to the negative of the battery. So if this has ever come out in the future, the negative of the battery should still give me power in the future. So the connection block is opened up, and the negative of the battery is the center one. So with all of these hooked up like this, the center one will be the negative of the battery, and now going to be the negative of the lights too. Somebody suggested offline that these blocks that I'm using have got a very tendency to pull out, which you have seen with the negative of the lights. So I asked around and see what people had suggested, and in the next video, or maybe 2, depending on how I feel, I might show you another set of setup connection blocks, which use forks. Instead of screwing into the side of the connection block, it uses a fork, like a very fine fork connector, and I thought that might be a little bit more easier setup. and I might put all of these into a fork connector instead of into a push and screw down fitting. So I wired this back up, and fingers crossed it would work. Now that I've done the negative hookup and the 3A fuse is out, now I've been stupid, and when the negative was out, in this little black box here, there's a tiny little black button right about there. Now, with that little black button, you press that little black button 8 times, it deletes the memory. So now, if I'm right in saying that this memory has now been deleted, the remote control on my key set and the spare remote control, which is somewhere here, which is here, is now disconnected from that black box, which is this there. So, in all matter of doing, if this works when I push that switch on, I'd be very shocked. But let's try it anyway, because you never know, it might have not disconnected. So power on, testing on, testing on, and testing off. So my accidentally pushing that little black button by the LED there, I pressed that 8 times. Maybe because of the negative being disconnected, it didn't forget the program settings. So the remote control was luckily not been deleted. Now if you had pressed that 8 times, and you had deleted the memory, then what you've got to do, if my memory serves me right, is to push that button twice, and then push the on button, and then quickly press the off button, and it would remember the sequence. If you push it once and press the button and then press the same button, it will be stuck on one button, so you have to hold the button down to keep the item on. Now if that's confusing you, I will try and contact the person who showed me how to set this little black box up in the beginning, and see if it's alright with him if I can link his video to this video, so that you can see how the black box works with his video. And I will try my best to do that in the future, if I can remember. So if I forget to do it, and this video goes out and I've forgotten to put the link in, please leave a comment down below to remind me to link the black box remote control receiver to remote control video. I don't know if that's what he calls it, but that's how I remember it. Now that that little black box is connected, I can put it back in its waterproof container, which fits nice and snugly. And you remember this little white switch, which was off at the time we'd done the video? And this is the backlight. Now I'm going to push it on. So now that that little switch is on, and the power is going to that. Oops, Daisy. I made a mess with all the connection points. So power on, lights come on, power off, lights go off. Which is a nice little song. Back here, if I come back here and do the same thing, power on, lights come on, power off, lights go off. Now if I remember to switch that little white switch on the front of the bike off, and do the same thing again, what do you think will happen? Power on, no backlights. Power off, no backlights. Because the white switch on the front is switched off. This is the safety switch for the backlights, so when you're on the road, you don't blind people when you're travelling along. But I don't use these LED lights for the back road or any of the roads because they are very bright lights and they can blind cars. I've got my road lights at the front which are already mounted to the bike. So in this video was a quick demonstration of why this receiver wasn't working, and also how to do it in the future. Now, you may be wondering, and I'm wondering for a fact, why was this power on, this receiver working, and this fuse out? Now, I've just realised something that you all might have noticed, because I forgot, is the fuse I pulled out wasn't for the lights. So, all that time I was fiddling with power, I could have gladly had an electric shock and short-circuited the power. Because I pulled out what I thought was the fuse for the actual lights, when in matter of fact, I pulled out the fuse for the voltmeter. So all this time I was doing the electrics, I pulled out the wrong fuse. That's the fuse for the lights, which it says quite clearly marked on the back of the lid, 3 amp fuse lights, 15 amp sockets. So 3 amp for the lights, 15 amp for the sockets, 5 amp for the horn, and 3 amp for the voltmeter. And I did not look at my box, even though I wrote it in big capital letters. I should have pulled that one out. Top tip, remember, write it down. Always look at the instruction manual before you start fiddling. Even when I did write it down. Which is a bit of an awkward one because I put screwdrivers on top. There you go. So there you go. Now that I've done that, this little wire that I left in here, I realised what that was for in the end. That is a tester wire, meaning that if I needed to test any of the negatives with one of the systems, I could put that one onto one of these fuses and then test the negatives off that way. Because I don't like having short-circuiting systems, so I put an extra wiring to test the circuits. So if I had a socket needing to test these, I had a spare. If I needed to test any of these back cables, say there's a short in the cable or something, I've got a spare to test it. So it's just basically a spare cable for testing the line anywhere. So if I needed to cut out a circuit here to say this horn switch, I could do so without having to do all comparable fuses and blocks. So in the next video, if they come soon, I'm going to try out a new connection block which has got the forks in, and see how they go. Now, if my mind reminds me to do a video, I will do a video on them. But remember that the blocks are coming with a 4-prong with the forks in them, I've not used before. I'm so used to using these white blocks. So the day we do the new setup, I might test them out in the house before I test them out in the quad bike, because I don't want to have any more problems to this bike and short circuit the battery. So all testing with the new blocks would be done in the house, because if you've got an expensive setup like I've got here, you don't want to go and wreck it. So I might be blundering on as usual. Little black box, I can show you the reading on that now if I just remove this orange cap. Right, I'm going to put the voltmeter on to 20, negative to negative, positive to positive. Oops. Negative to negative, positive to positive, if we can get it to stay there. So negative should go on that screw there, and positive on negative on that one, positive on that one. So you've got to make sure that they're on the right way round, otherwise you don't get any voltage. Now there is power going through, but it's not any dangerous power. It's enough to give you a shock, but it's not enough to power the lights. So if I switch the switch on with my finger, or with my phone even, like so, now you should have 16 volts going into that black box. Oops, now it's 17. So that's maximum voltage going to the system. And it's flexing because my fingers aren't holding it tightly to the screws. Now some people may say something's wrong there, but I'm not that capable of knowing the situation. So if you're up to knowing what the situation is and why it's varying between 16 and 17 volts, I would like to know, because I like to know if I'm doing something wrong, because I am only doing this as a hobble for myself. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and leave a comment if you know what's going on with the flexible of 17 volts to 16 volts, and anything else that you might suggest on cleaning up the wirings in the box. I would really appreciate the help.